My name is Lena, and I am 28 years old, and I live in the heart of New York City, which is a place that never truly sleeps even when you really want it to sleep, so you can get some rest. And my life used to be very simple and very focused on my career as a graphic designer, and my wonderful relationship with my girlfriend whose name is Maya. And we have a small apartment that overlooks a busy street where taxis honk their horns at all hours of the day and night, but I never minded the noise because it felt like the pulse of the world, and I felt safe and happy in my little bubble of light and color and creativity, until a shadow from my past decided to crawl back into my life and try to pull me down into a hole of lies and manipulation that I never saw coming. Several years ago, when I was finishing up my college degree, I met a girl named Sarah, and at first Sarah seemed like a normal person who just wanted to be friends, but very quickly her feelings turned into something much more intense and much more frightening, because she started to tell people that we were going to get married, even though I had never even taken her out on a single date. And I had told her many times that I was not interested in her in a romantic way, and that I was actually gay and looking for a long-term relationship with a woman who understood me, but Sarah did not want to hear the word no, and she kept insisting that we were soulmates, and that we were destined to be together forever in a house with a white picket fence. And I realized then that she was not living in the same reality as the rest of us, so I did the only thing I could do to protect my peace of mind, and I blocked her on every single social media platform, and I changed my phone number, and I moved to different part of the city, and I thought that would be the end of it, and for a long time it actually was the end of it, and I moved on with my life, and I met Maya, and we fell in love, and we started building a future together that felt real and solid and beautiful. Then out of nowhere, about 6 months ago, I received an email from an address I did not recognize, and when I opened it, my heart dropped into my stomach, because it was Sarah. And she told me that she had gotten married to a man named Mark who was a teacher at a local school in a town about 400 kilometers away from New York City. And she said that she was miserable, and that Mark did not love her, and that he was cold and distant, and that she felt like a prisoner in her own home, and she told me that she had never stopped thinking about me, and that she knew deep down in her heart that I still loved her too, and she asked me to elope with her and leave my life behind to start over with her in some secret place where no one could find us. And I should have deleted that email right then and there, and I should have blocked that new address without saying a word. But I felt a strange sense of guilt, because she sounded so desperate and so broken, and I thought that maybe if I just talked to her as a friend I could help her realize that her marriage could be saved, or that she could find a way to be happy without ruining her life and my life in the process. I told her very clearly that I was in a committed relationship with Maya, and that I was happy, and that I did not have any romantic feelings for her at all. But I told her I would listen if she needed to talk about her problems, because I have always been a person who wants to help others, and that was my biggest mistake. Because Sarah took my kindness as an open door, and she started messaging me every single day, and she would tell me horrible stories about how her husband ignored her and how lonely she was, and eventually, the conversations started to drift into territory that made me feel very uncomfortable, because she would start talking about things that were sexual in nature. And she would send me messages that were very inappropriate, and even though I told her to stop, I found myself caught in a cycle of replying to her, because she would threaten to hurt herself if I did not answer her messages, and I was so scared that I would be responsible for something terrible happening to her that I kept talking to her, and I even participated in some sexting, because I felt like I was trapped in a corner, and I did not know how to get out without causing a disaster. I was also very foolish, because I thought I could trick her husband into finding out that she was being unfaithful so that he would divorce her, and she would be forced to move on and find someone else. So I sent her pictures of female hygiene products and other things that a man would notice were out of place in his home if he was paying attention. And I hoped that he would see these things on her phone or in their house and realize that something was wrong. But instead of the husband finding out and leaving her quietly, everything exploded in a way that I was not prepared for at all. Sarah told me that her husband finally found our chat logs on her phone, and she said that things turned physical between them and that he was furious, and she blocked me for a few days. And I actually felt a sense of relief, because I thought that the nightmare was finally over and that they were going to deal with their own problems and leave me out of it. But then a few days later, she contacted me again from a brand new phone with a brand new number, and she told me that she was in huge trouble and that her husband was watching her every move, but she had managed to sneak away to buy this secret phone just to talk to me. And then she started to pressure me again to engage in sexual talk. And she sent me nude photos of herself that I did not want to see. And when I tried to tell her that we needed to stop, she dropped a bomb on me by showing me screenshots of our previous conversations, where I had said things that looked very bad out of context. And she told me that if I did not do exactly what she said, she would send those screenshots to my sister and to my girlfriend Maya, and my heart began to race. And I felt like I could not breathe because Maya is the most important person in the world to me. And I knew that if she saw those messages, she would be heartbroken, and she might never forgive me for talking to another woman like that, even if I was being manipulated and pressured into it. Sarah even showed me a screenshot where she had already started a message to my sister, and her finger was hovering over the send button. And I felt so threatened and so small that I complied with her demands. And I did what she wanted because I was terrified of losing my family and my partner, and I felt like I was drowning in a sea of my own mistakes. And Sarah told me that I was caught now, and that she would never let me go, and that I would have to be her secret lover whenever she wanted for the rest of my life, or she would destroy everything I cared about. I realized then that I was dealing with a person who was not just sad or lonely, but who was truly malicious, and who enjoyed having power over me, and I knew that I could not live like this anymore, because the stress was making me sick. And I could not look Maya in the eye without feeling like a total failure and a liar, so I decided to block Sarah one more time, and I hoped that she was just bluffing about the messages, but she was not bluffing at all, and she followed through on her threat, and she contacted Maya. And she tried to tell her all sorts of lies about how I had been chasing her for years, and how I was the one who wouldn't leave her alone even though she was a married woman. And she tried to sabotage my entire relationship by painting me as a predator and a cheater. However, what Sarah did not realize is that I had already sat Maya down and told her the entire truth, because I knew that honesty was the only way I could ever hope to save our relationship. And I showed Maya every single message, and I explained how I felt trapped and how I was scared, and Maya was angry at first, but she was angry at the situation and at Sarah for being so cruel, and she stood by my side, and we decided together that we were going to fight back. It turns out that Sarah's husband Mark was also aware of what was happening, because he had seen the messages on her phone before, and he actually spoke with Maya over the phone, and they compared notes, and Maya told him about everything that had happened, including the things that happened years ago, when Sarah was first obsessed with me, and Mark realized that his wife was not the person he thought she was, and that she had been lying to him since the day they met. Mark is a teacher, and he has a reputation to uphold in his small town, and he was devastated to learn that his wife was a stalker and a blackmailer. But he was also tired of her lies, and he wanted out of the marriage just as much as I wanted her out of my life. So I decided that it was time for me to take control of the situation and deliver a revenge that would ensure Sarah would never be able to bother me or anyone else ever again. I spent weeks gathering every single piece of evidence I had, including old emails from college and the screenshots of her threatening to message my sister, and the logs of her demanding sexual favors in exchange for her silence. And I also reached out to some of the people we knew in college, and I discovered that I was not the only person she had done this to, and that there were other women who had been harassed by her, but they were too afraid to speak up at the time. I compiled all of this information into a massive digital file, and I made sure it was organized and easy to read, because I wanted it to be undeniable, and I wanted it to be the final nail in the coffin of her reputation. I knew that Sarah valued her image above everything else, and she wanted everyone to think she was a perfect wife and a sweet person who just had bad luck, but I was going to show the world who she really was. I waited until I knew that Mark was ready to file for divorce, and then I took my trip to their town, which was a long 400-kilometer drive that gave me a lot of time to think about what I was doing. And I felt a sense of calm that I had not felt in months, because I knew that I was doing the right thing to protect myself and my future. When I arrived in the town, I went straight to the local school where Mark worked, and I met him in a quiet park nearby during his lunch break, and he looked like a man who had not slept in weeks, and he told me that Sarah was still trying to act like everything was fine, and that she was still sending me messages from yet another secret phone she had hidden in the house. I gave Mark a copy of the file I had created, and I told him that he should use it in the divorce proceedings to make sure that she did not get a single penny from him. And then I told him my plan for the final act of revenge, which involved making sure that her family and her social circle knew exactly what she had been up to. Sarah came from a very conservative family who lived in a nearby town, and they were the type of people who cared very much about what the neighbors thought. And I knew that if they saw the evidence of her behavior, they would be horrified, and they would stop supporting her lies. I created a social media page that was dedicated to exposing the truth, and I uploaded the evidence there. But I kept it private at first, and then I sent a link to the page to Sarah's parents and her siblings and her best friends, along with a message that said I was tired of being harassed, and that I was not going to stay silent anymore while she tried to destroy my life. The reaction was almost instantaneous, because within an hour I started getting notifications that the page was being viewed. And then my phone started blowing up with messages from Sarah, who was screaming and crying and accusing me of being a monster for ruining her life. But I did not reply to any of them, and I just sat back and watched as the world she had built on lies began to crumble around her. Her parents were so ashamed of what she had done that they told her she was no longer welcome in their home until she got professional help, and Mark moved out of their house that same day and filed for an emergency divorce. And he used the evidence I gave him to prove that she was unstable and that the marriage was based on a foundation of deception. Sarah tried one last time to come after me by showing up in New York City and waiting outside my apartment building. But I had already called the police, and I had a restraining order ready to be served to her the moment she stepped onto the property. And when she saw the officers waiting for her, she finally realized that she had no power left and that she had lost everything because she tried to play a game that she was not smart enough to win. She was escorted away, and I haven't seen her since, but I heard through the grapevine that she had to move away to a different state where no one knows her because her reputation in her hometown was completely ruined, and she can no longer find work or friends there. As for me and Maya, our relationship is stronger than ever because we went through the fire together, and we came out on the other side with a deeper trust and a better understanding of how to protect each other. And I learned a very important lesson about boundaries and about the fact that you cannot help everyone, especially if they are trying to hurt you in the process. My life in New York City is back to being loud and busy and full of light, and I can finally sleep at night without worrying about what a notification on my phone might mean because the shadow is gone and the truth has set me free. I sometimes think about Mark, and I hope that he is doing well, and that he finds someone who actually loves him and who doesn't use him as a cover for their own obsessions, because he is a good man who got caught in the crossfire of a very dangerous woman. I still have the files saved on a hard drive, just in case she ever decides to come back, but I don't think she will because she knows that I am not the same person I was before, and I am no longer afraid of her or her lies. The revenge was not just about hurting her, but about reclaiming my own life and showing her that she could not control me, and that my love for Maya and my respect for myself was much more powerful than any blackmail she could ever come up with. It is funny how someone can try so hard to trap you and end up building their own cage instead. And that is exactly what happened to Sarah, because she is now living with the consequences of her own actions, and she has to look in the mirror every day and know that the person she sees is the one who destroyed everything. I am 28 years old, and I have my whole life ahead of me, and I am going to live it with honesty and joy, and I am never going to let anyone make me feel small or threatened ever again, because I know how to fight back, and I know that the truth will always find a way to win in the end. Looking back at the whole ordeal, I realized that my biggest mistake was thinking that I could manage a person who was fundamentally broken in a way that required professional medical help, and not just a kind ear, because sometimes kindness is seen as a weakness by predators, and they will use it to get their hooks into you and pull you under. I also realized that I should have trusted Maya from the very beginning, because she is my partner, and she deserves to know when I am struggling or when someone is trying to hurt us. And by trying to handle it on my own, I only made it easier for Sarah to isolate me and make me feel like I was alone. But we grow through what we go through, and I have grown so much in the last 6 months that I hardly recognize the woman who was shaking with fear over a few screenshots. And now, when I walk down the streets of New York City, I hold my head high, and I feel a sense of pride because I stood up for myself, and I won a battle that many people would have lost. The taxis are still honking, and the city is still loud, but the noise sounds like music to me now, because it is the sound of a world where I am free to be who I am without any shadows hanging over me, and that is the best revenge I could ever have. I spent a long time thinking about why I even responded to her in the first place, and I think it was because I wanted to believe that people can change, and that even someone as troubled as Sarah could find a way to be a good person. But I have learned that you cannot change people who do not want to change themselves, and you certainly cannot save someone who is actively trying to drown you while you are trying to pull them to shore. The long drive to that small town was the most peaceful I had felt in months because it felt like a mission of justice, and I remember the smell of the air when I got out of the car, and the way the trees looked in the park where I met Mark, and everything felt so clear and so sharp because I was no longer living in a fog of fear. When I gave him that file, it felt like I was handing over a heavy weight that I had been carrying for way too long, and I could see the same relief in his eyes when he realized he had the proof he needed to get his life back too. We didn't talk for very long, but we didn't need to because we both understood the gravity of the situation, and we both knew that Sarah had brought this on herself by being so cruel and so calculating. I think about the teacher at the local school and how he had to deal with the gossip and the shame of his wife's behavior. But he told me later that the community was actually very supportive once they knew the truth, and they were glad that he was getting away from someone who was so dishonest. Sarah's family was the hardest part because I don't like causing pain to people who haven't done anything wrong, but they needed to know the truth so they could stop enabling her, and perhaps they could get her the help she clearly needs. I heard that she is in some kind of therapy now, but I don't really care if it's true or not because she is no longer my responsibility and she is no longer a part of my story. My sister was also very supportive when she found out, and she felt bad that she had almost been used as a weapon against me, but we laughed about it later because Sarah's plan was so desperate and so poorly thought out that it was almost pathetic in the end. Maya and I sometimes talk about moving to a bigger apartment or even getting a house outside the city one day. But for now, we are happy right where we are in the middle of the noise and the lights and the life of New York City. I have started focusing more on my art and my designs, and I feel like my work has improved because I am no longer distracted by the constant buzzing of my phone and the threats of a madwoman. I have also become much more careful about my privacy, and I make sure that my social media accounts are locked down tight and that I only let people into my life who have earned my trust. It is a shame that I had to learn these lessons the hard way, but I am grateful for the strength I found in myself and the love I found in Maya. The story of Lena and Sarah is over, and the book is closed, and I am the one who got to write the final chapter, and it was a chapter of victory and peace. I remember one specific night, shortly after Sarah was served with the restraining order when Maya and I were sitting on our small balcony, and we were drinking tea and watching the lights of the city below us. And for the first time in a year, I didn't feel like I was waiting for the other shoe to drop, and I didn't feel like I was hiding a secret, and it was the most beautiful feeling in the world. I am 28, and I am strong, and I am happy, and I am free, and that is all that matters. The journey from being a victim of manipulation to being the architect of my own justice was a long and difficult one, but it was worth every single step, because I am a better person now than I was before. I have a message for anyone else who might be going through something like this, and that is to never stay silent and never let someone use your kindness against you, because there is always a way out, and there are always people who will stand by you if you tell them the truth. Do not let the manipulators win, and do not let them tell you who you are because you are the only one who has the power to define your life and your future. I look at the skyscrapers, and I see the reflection of the sun on the glass, and I feel like the world is wide open and full of possibilities, and I am ready to take on whatever comes next with my head held high and a smile on my face. The teacher in the small town is teaching again, and the graphic designer in the big city is designing again, and the woman who tried to break us is just a memory that is fading more and more every day. I am Lena, and this is my story, and it is a story of how I took my power back, and how I made sure that the person who tried to destroy me was the one who ended up losing everything. The 4,000-kilometer distance between my city and her town used to feel like a gap that wasn't big enough to keep me safe, but now it feels like a vast ocean that she can never cross again. I am surrounded by love and by truth and by the beautiful chaos of New York City, and I have never felt more alive or more at peace with who I am. The long version of every turn in this story has led me to a place of clarity, and I will never go back to the darkness again. I have deleted the secret phone numbers, and I have wiped the old emails, and I have cleaned my digital life just as thoroughly as I have cleaned my physical life, and it feels like a fresh start in every way possible. Maya is calling me from the other room, and she is asking what I want for dinner, and I realize that these are the moments that matter, and these are the moments that Sarah tried to take away from me. But she failed, and she will always fail because love is stronger than hate and truth is stronger than lies. I am going to go now and enjoy my evening with my girlfriend, and I am going to watch the sunset over the Hudson River, and I am going to be thankful for every single thing I have. The revenge is complete, and the lesson is learned, and the future is bright. My sister is coming over later to watch a movie, and we are going to laugh and talk and enjoy being a family without any fear of blackmail or manipulation hanging over our heads. I have realized that the best way to deal with a person like Sarah is not to play her game, but to change the game entirely, and that is exactly what I did when I brought Mark into the situation, and when I exposed her to her own family. She thought she was the one in control, but she was actually the one who was the most vulnerable because her entire identity was built on a lie, and once that lie was gone, she had nothing left to hold on to. I am proud of myself for not giving up and for finding the courage to face her, and I am proud of Maya for being the incredible woman that she is. We are a team, and we are a force to be filtered, and we are not going to be broken by anyone or anything. The streets of New York City are waiting for me, and I am going to walk them with joy and with a sense of purpose that I never had before. This is the end of the story, but it is the beginning of the rest of my life, and I am so excited to see what happens next. No more acronyms, and no more secrets, and no more fear, just a long and beautiful road ahead of me, and I am ready for it. I am Lena, and I am 28 years old, and I am the winner of this story, and I am going to live happily ever after with the woman I love in the city that I call home. The noise of the city is like a heartbeat, and it is a heartbeat that is steady and strong, and it matches my own as I move forward into a future that is entirely mine, and no one else can take it away from me. I hope that by sharing this story, someone else can find the strength to stand up for themselves too, because we all deserve to live in the light, and we all deserve to be free from the people who want to pull us into the dark. I am done with the past, and I am focused on the present and the future, and it is a wonderful place to be. The revenge was sweet, but the peace that followed is even sweeter, and that is the real victory in all of this. I am going to live my life to the fullest, and I am going to make every second count because I know how precious my freedom and my happiness really are. Thank you for listening to my story, and remember that you are stronger than you think, and you are never alone. The city is bright, and the night is young, and I am ready to live my life exactly how I want to live it without any apologies and without any fear. This is my resolution, and this is my truth, and this is my life. I am Lena, and I am 28 years old, and I am free.